This is not a drill, DMV. While others sleep, Washington is brewing a perfect storm. First, a rookie QB who rejects celebrating wins to dissect errors with a GOAT, savant or competitive psycho. Second, an offensive multi-dimensional weapon, imported from the NFC West, putting coordinators on edge who swore they'd never see him here. And third, the square meter monster freed from invisible chains tearing lines like it was Madden. How does this connect? Simple. It's the formula of terror. If you're not watching every snap, you're giving away your right to shout, "I told you so," when chaos erupts. The NFC East trembles, rivals adjust schemes. Look, I've covered this team for over a decade. I've seen more quarterbacks come and fail than I can count, but what Jaden Daniels told Tom Brady after his first pro game has me completely convinced that we're witnessing something different. After completing 19 of 27 passes for 233 yards and a touchdown, after running for 68 yards on 11 attempts, being the second most effective rusher on the team, after winning 21-6 completely, dominating the Giants, do you know what his first words to the GOAT were? "I'm happy with the week 1 win, but it was very sloppy." Very sloppy. Can you believe that? A 22-year-old rookie in his first professional game, seeing mistakes where others only see success. That's not a rookie mentality. That's the mindset of a champion in the making. I'm telling you, I'm marking it as the most important moment of the week. When a quarterback can see beyond individual stats, when they can pinpoint specific issues in a convincing victory, that tells me we have someone with the mental DNA of the greats. Remember that deep ball that went long to Terry McLaurin? While we were celebrating from the stands for finally having a quarterback who could make that read, Jaden was already analyzing why the pass wasn't perfect. And here's what really excites me. That specific play probably would have been a touchdown if McLaurin had more activities. But instead of blaming his receiver, Jaden takes responsibility, looking for ways to improve timing, thinking about adjusting his mechanics so that next time that connection is automatic. Now let me ask you this. When was the last time we heard a Washington quarterback talk like this? Robert Griffin III arrived with much fanfare after winning Rookie of the Year, but we never heard him analyze his mistakes with his clinical precision. Kirk Cousins had the experience and stats, but there was always a sense he was more worried about his image than perfecting his play. Carson Wentz and Taylor Heinicke have brilliant moments, but neither had this capacity for constructive self-criticism we are seeing now. And you know what impresses me even more? That Jaden not only identified the problems, but immediately started talking solutions for Green Bay. Teams won't be at their best in week 1, but we have to clean it up now to be ready for Green Bay on a short. That's not just maturity, that's natural leadership. But let me tell you something that excites me even more. The fact that Tom Brady is having these conversations with Jaden is no coincidence. Brady doesn't waste time on players who don't have the potential for greatness. When the man with 7 Super Bowls sits to listen to a rookie's analysis, it means he sees something special. I believe this mindset from Jaden comes from years of mental preparation, not just physical. LSU didn't just teach him to throw the ball, it taught him to think the game. Caleb Williams is showcasing his arm in Chicago, Drake May is waiting for a shot in New England, but Jaden is here demonstrating something that can be taught. The intelligent humility of knowing you can always improve. And here's something not being talked about enough. The impact of having Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator and Dan Quinn as head coach. These are 2 men who have worked with elite quarterbacks at a professional level, who understand how to develop young talent without burning their confidence. When Jaden talks about cleaning the game, he's using terminology clearly coming from his coaching staff's teachings. Quinn has been very clear since arriving. I don't want to replicate what we did last year. I want to build on it. That mentality of continuous improvement is permeating the entire team. And Jaden is the perfect example of what that looks like in practice. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's just one game against a Giants team clearly not at their best. And you're right to be cautious. But here's the difference. Jaden knows this too. That's why his immediate focus on Green Bay, why his concern for the details that could cost dearly against a more prepared team. The Packers will be a completely different test. Jordan Love is no longer a backup. Aaron Jones knows that offensive system, and that Green Bay defense has had time to prepare specifically for what they saw of Jaden against the Giants. But I'm They're telling you this: if our rookie maintains that mindset of constructive self-criticism, if he keeps seeing mistakes where others see success, he'll be ready for any adjustments Green Bay tries to make. Look, yesterday's stats were solid but not spectacular. 19 out of 27, 233 yards, 1 TD through the air, 0 interceptions, 68 yards rushing. Numbers of a competent rookie, but not historic. And what was historic was hearing that same rookie talk to Tom Brady about specific deficiencies in his game that even commentators hadn't noticed. That difference between being statistically competent and mentally elite is what separates quarterbacks with solid careers from those who win championships. And if Jaden can keep that hunger for perfection, that ability to see mistakes and victories, we're not just talking about a good rookie season. We're talking about the foundation of a career. When a 22-year-old can speak as an equal to the GOAT about the technical details of his first professional game, when he can make that mental transition from celebrating the victory to analyzing the mistakes in real time, that tells me Dan Quinn and Adam Peters didn't just select an exceptional athlete. They selected an exceptional mind that also happens to throw the ball 60 yards with pinpoint accuracy. But look at this. This is where things get really interesting, because while everyone was talking about the draft and Jaden Daniels, Adam Peters was making the quiet move that could define this entire season. Deebo Samuel Sr. arrived in Washington, and from his first series was rewriting the rules of this offense. 7 receptions, 77 yards, a rushing touchdown that sent FedEx Field into total madness. But more important than the stats, 10 targets in his first game. 10 targets! Do you know what that means? It means that Jaden Daniels, in his first professional game, already trusts Deebo more than receivers who've been in the system for years. I've been covering this team since the days of Joe Theismann, and I'm telling you this: I've never seen such a natural connection between a rookie quarterback and a veteran receiver in their first game together. That chemistry they developed in training camp wasn't coincidence. It was the result of two football minds connecting on a level beyond individual experience. When Deebo ran that reverse and crossed the goal line, I wasn't just seeing a touchdown, I was seeing the future of this offense. That specific play requires perfect timing, requires the quarterback to know exactly when to release the ball, requires the receiver to understand the perfect angle for the handoff. And they executed it as if they've been doing it for years. But let me tell you something that completely threw. The 49ers let Deebo Samuel go. It wasn't an impossible salary cap decision. It wasn't a situation where they had to choose between him and other stars. They simply decided they could live without him, that Brandon Ayuk and their other receivers were enough to maintain the level. Can you believe that decision now? Deebo arrived here with something to prove, with the motivation to show Kyle Shanahan. He made one of the biggest mistakes of his career as head coach, and that motivation, combined with the natural talent we already knew, is creating a version of Deebo that could be even better than what we saw in San Francisco. Now let me ask you this: what defensive coordinator in the NFL East has an answer for what we saw yesterday? The Cowboys must prepare for a receiver who can line up outside in the slot, in the backfield, who can catch passes, run reverses, and even throw the ball occasionally. The Eagles have to study film of a player who makes Terry McLaurin even more dangerous because he's no longer the sole threat on the field. And the Giants? Well, they've already experienced firsthand what it means to face Deebo Samuel. And I can assure you, Wink Martindale is having sleepless nights trying to figure out how to defend that versatility when we meet later in the season. But here's what really excites me: the effect Deebo is having on the rest of the receivers. Terry McLaurin can now operate with less bracket coverage because defenses must allocate extra resources to Deebo. Noah Brown can work from more comfortable positions because he's no longer automatically the second most dangerous option. Even rookie Jalen Lane has more developmental opportunities because the immediate pressure to produce has significantly reduced. When Deebo is on the field, Cliff Kingsbury has options that didn't exist before. He can call plays requiring multiple simultaneous threats, use formations that confuse defenses who don't know if Deebo will run a route, receive a handoff, or serve as a decoy to open up space for others. I believe Deebo Samuel's arrival is comparable to when the Patriots brought in Randy Moss, or when the Buccaneers brought in Antonio Brown for that championship run. I'm not saying Debo is at those players' level at their peak, but I'm saying the immediate impact on the offensive dynamic is similar. Remember how everything changed for Tom Brady when suddenly he had Randy Moss routes? How that opened the entire field for Wes Welker and the other receivers. That's what's happening here, but with an extra wrinkle. Debo isn't just a deep threat. He's a multi-dimensional threat that can attack from anywhere on the field. And here's something fundamental. For the first time in years, Washington has a clear offensive identity. We're not just a team trying to survive with limited talent. We're a team that can attack defenses in multiple ways simultaneously. With 220 rushing yards from the backfield, Jaden's mobility, and now Debo's versatility, this offense can switch personalities within the same drive. We can start with power runs with our running backs, then use Jaden's mobility to extend plays, and end with Debo running a reverse, completely baffling the defense. Let me tell you, something that's not being discussed enough. The timing of this trade was perfect financially speaking. Debo arrived at the exact moment when we could maximize his value without compromising our salary cap long term. The 49ers had already paid most of his signing bonus. We're getting his best years without the major financial hit. That efficiency in the front office, that ability by Adam Peters to identify opportunities where others only see expense, separates organizations vying for championships from those merely competing for playoff spots. And Debo is immediately delivering at a level justifying every penny of that investment. But here's the real question. Can Debo maintain this level for 17 games? His injury history isn't perfect, and we know his physical style has inherent risks. But I'm telling you this, if he can stay healthy, if he keeps building this chemistry with Jaden, then we're not just talking about improving our offense. We're talking about completely transforming the season's expectations. When a player of Debo Samuel's caliber arrives at a young, hungry team like ours, when he finds a rookie quarterback unafraid to trust him from the first snap, when he connects with an offensive coordinator, understanding how to maximize his versatility, it's not just an addition to the roster. It's the catalyst that can turn a competent team into a day. You know what? For 7 long years, we've been waiting to see the true version of Darren Payne, and yesterday we finally got our answer. Ever since he arrived from Alabama in 2018 as a first-round pick, we always knew he had the physical talent to dominate, but there was something limiting him, something preventing us from seeing his full potential. Now I know exactly what it was. Jonathan Allen. Don't get me wrong, Jonathan Allen was a solid player and respected veteran, but his presence created a dynamic where Darren could never establish his own identity, could never become the natural leader his talent suggested he could be. Yesterday, with Allen already in Chicago and Javon Kinlaw still adjusting to the system, we finally saw Darren Payne without restrictions, without predefined roles, without operating under anyone's shadow. From the first series against the Giants, Darren was in total destruction mode. That third down tackle in the opening drive forcing the punt was just the beginning of what would be a masterclass on how an elite defensive tackle can change an entire game's dynamics. He generated constant pressure throughout the first half, repeatedly collapsing the pocket, and when the second quarter came, we finally got what we've been waiting for since 2018. Bam! Washington's first official sack of the season, with Darren taking Russell Wilson down through a combination of pure power and refined technique, reminded me why we picked him so high in that draft. But let me tell you something that really excites me. This isn't just the result of Allen not being here. This is the result of a complete transformation in Darren's approach to the game. He worked all off season to arrive in the best physical shape of his career. But more importantly, he worked on his leadership mentality. Dan Quinn and his coaching staff clearly identified that Darren had the potential to be the anchor of this defensive line, but he needed the mental and emotional space to develop that identity. With Allen out of the picture, with Javon Kinlaw arriving more as a complement than a direct competitor, Darren finally has the freedom to be the elite version of himself we always knew he could be. Now, let me ask you this. Isn't it interesting that as soon as Jonathan Allen leaves, Darren explodes way? I don't believe in coincidences regarding player development. I think there are internal dynamics, locker room chemistry, unwritten hierarchies that can limit individual growth even when there are no direct conflicts. Allen was the established Veteran, the one with automatic respect, the one naturally assuming certain leadership roles. Darren, despite his talent, was always seen as the complement, the second option. The one who had to adapt to Allen's playing style instead of developing his dominant style. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. That $1 million contract Darren signed generated so much fan debate. After a 2024 season that wasn't his best, after criticisms on whether he really deserved that money, there was real pressure on his shoulders to justify the investment. His response? A dominant performance silencing all critics once and for all. When a player can respond to external pressure with excellence in the field, when they can turn doubts into positive motivation, that tells me they've got the mental makeup of the greats. But here's what really excites me, the domino effect Darren's dominance has on the rest of the defensive line. Javon Kinlaw can operate under less pressure because he's not the only one expected to generate disruption. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. has more one-on-one opportunities because offensive lines must allocate extra resources to contain Darren. Even Dietrich Wise Jr. benefits from more favorable situations. When you have a defensive tackle consistently collapsing the pocket from the interior, that completely changes the math for rival offensive coordinators. They can no longer simply slide. Protection to the edge rushers. They have to double team the interior, which opens opportunities for all other pass rushers. I believe we're seeing the start of a transformation that could put Darren in conversations with the league's best defensive tackles. When I look at his size, strength, and athletic ability combination, when I see how he's starting to use more refined techniques to complement his physical gifts, it reminds me of players like Aaron Donald in their early years of total dominance. Obviously, I'm not saying Darren will be Aaron Donald, but I'm saying he has similar tools and is finally in a situation where he can maximize those tools without external restrictions. If he can maintain this level of play, if he continues developing his leadership presence, then we could be talking about a Pro Bowl candidate very soon. And here's something crucial. The impact of having Dan Quinn as head coach and how he's using Darren within the defensive scheme. Quinn has experience developing elite defensive lines, knows how to place players in positions where they can maximize their individual impact while contributing to collective success. The system Quinn is implementing allows Darren to use his natural versatility. He can line up as a nose tackle on running downs, slide outside on passing situations, occasionally drop into coverage to confuse quarterbacks. That flexibility not only makes Darren more valuable individually, but it also makes the entire defense more unpredictable and therefore more effective. But I know what you're thinking. It's just one game against the Giants' offensive line, clearly not at their best, and you're right in maintaining realistic expectations. The real test for Darren will be maintaining this level of dominance against more talented offensive lines, against coordinators with more time to prepare specific countermeasures. But here's why I'm optimistic. What I saw yesterday wasn't just physical domination, it was mental domination. Darren was anticipating plays, reading keys like a 10-year veteran, making real-time adjustments that demonstrated a football IQ level we hadn't consistently seen previous years. And let me tell you something fundamental. When a player like Darren Payne, who's been in the organization for 7 years, who's lived through multiple coaching changes, multiple disappointments, finally finds their voice as a leader, it sends a powerful message to the entire roster. Rookies like Jaden Daniels see that excellence is possible within this organization. Veterans see it's not too late to reach new levels of performance. Coaches see that systems can unlock potential dormant for years. When Darren Payne dominates as he did yesterday, he's not just improving the defense, he's elevating the standard for the entire team. He's showing that Washington can be a place where players reach their maximum potential, where individual talent translates into collective success. That cultural transformation, that shift towards excellence across the board, is what truly separates this season from all previous disappointments. And Darren Payne, after 7 years of waiting for his moment, is finally leading that transformation from the inside out. Look, after deeply analyzing these three stories, after connecting all the dots explaining why this first week was so significant, I have a theory that goes beyond the individual performances we just discussed. Do you realize these three stories are completely interconnected? Jaden Daniels can have that mindset of constructive self-criticism because he has weapons like Deebo Samuel allowing him to be demanding of himself without panicking over a lack of talent around. Deebo Samuel can maximize his impact because He has a defensive line led by Payne, keeping games competitive and giving the offense more opportunities to showcase their versatility. And Payne can finally step into his leadership role because he's part of a complete team effort where his individual excellence contributes to collective success. That interconnectedness, that symphony of individual talent serving collective goals is exactly what we've been missing in Washington for decades. We had individual bright spots. We had momentary flashes of potential, but we never have multiple elite performances happening simultaneously in service of the same vision. Dan Quinn and Adam Peters didn't just improve individual positions. During the offseason, they created an ecosystem where every player can reach his maximum potential because he is surrounded by others also reaching their maximum potential. This is the difference between rebuilding and reloading, between hoping for improvement and expecting excellence. Now let me ask you this, and I want you to really think about the answer. Which of these three elements, Jaden's mental maturity, Debo's instant impact, or Darren's emergence as a leader, do you think will be most critical for our long-term championship aspirations? Because I'm telling you this, individually, each of these factors would be sufficient to generate excitement about this season. But together, working in perfect harmony, supporting each other's success, they represent something we haven't seen in Washington since the early 90s, the foundation of potential dynasty. Do you believe Jaden can maintain that ruthless self-analysis, keeping him improving even during success? Do you think Debo and his connection with Jaden will continue growing each week until they're operating with telepathic precision? Or is Darren's transformation into a true defensive leader what really unlocks our ceiling as a team? Let me know in the comments what perspective you have, because this community, this Burgundy and Gold family, always brings insights I hadn't considered. If you like this deep dive analysis, if you feel you're seeing something truly special building in Washington, just like I do, give this video a like and make sure to subscribe to the channel, because we will be documenting every step of what could be the most important season in Washington football history. And remember, we're not just watching individual players anymore. We're watching the birth of an identity, the construction of a culture, the foundation of something that could define Washington football for the next decade. Hail to the Redskins, and see you in the next video when we have even more evidence that this team is everything we hoped it could be.